Hi guys, and welcome to TechFurb. Today we are building a computer yet again, so let's dive into that. Okay, so the build today we are doing is a little bit different from normal. The build today we are doing is a Ryzen 5 1600 build, and this is going to be the permanent TechFurb test bench. When I say permanent, I literally mean permanent. And the reason why we're doing this is it's really bothered me that I haven't had a system that's sort of the gold standard, and not in the sense of, you know, it's the top rung. Like, you know, it's not the 9900K with a 2080 Ti. This is the absolute best performance you can get. What I want is something that's sort of, this is the performance you would expect if you built a brand new system today using middle of the range, off the shelf parts. That's what this build is going to be about. It's all about the mid-range. It's all about just showing what performance you should expect from a CPU. And the reason why that's significant for this channel is we don't review a lot of modern CPUs. This is the reality check. The only modern CPU, well, I've reviewed two modern CPUs. The i7 7700 non-K and the Ryzen 7 1700. They're the two CPUs that I've reviewed that have been made in the last 3 years. That's the reality check. What I normally review is an i5 2400 or an Intel Core 2 Quad Q 6600 or an Intel i7 3770. They all have one thing in common. They're old. They're old CPUs. And while I can sit there and say, you know, this 3770 is amazing, it does awesome things, what reference point do I have to say that? I have nothing sitting there in my benchmark charts that just is consistently there that says, this is what this CPU should be doing with this graphics card. There's nothing to say that in my benchmark graphs. That is what this build is all about. So, what's in this build? As I mentioned, Ryzen 5 1600. For RAM, we are doing something that I don't normally do. We're putting in decent RAM. It's it's DDR4 3000 megahertz dual channel 16 gig kit. I got it on a good deal. I got it for I think it was 115 bucks, brand new. Pretty sweet deal. And then we're going with a B350 motherboard. For the purposes of this video, an RX 480 is getting put in this build. 750 watt power supply. Probably will change this particular power supply because it's not the greatest. SSD, 1TB drive, and a Cooler Master case that is RGB up the wazoo. So, with all my rambling done, I think we need to put this guy together and start running some benchmarks. Alright guys, so let's have a look at my ingenuity. I've got the power supply all wired up now, and I'm going to show you a quick spin around of the system. I'm going to play a game. Can you spot the imperfection? And when I say imperfection, I mean ketchup and mustard. So I'm going to show you the front of the case, and then we're going to have a look at the back of the case. This is the front. As you can see, looking all nice and pretty beautiful. Of course, no RGB currently, but when it's lit up and it's night time, it's going to look really great. And then we get around to the back of the system. Yeah, it's pretty ugly back here. It's very much like myself, pretty on the outside and ugly on the inside, because we all know that's a joke, it's not true. But yeah, I mean, this is the thing. When you're building on a budget, this is the sort of thing you have to do. You can have an aesthetically good-looking computer on a budget. This is a cheap case. This is like a $70 case. It did come with 3 RGB fans out of the box. You know, this obviously it's a second-hand build, but if you were to build this, you'd be setting yourself back about $800, $900, $1,000 Australian. Give or take, maybe you can do it cheaper, maybe it costs you more. But you know, this is a budget build, and remember, Australian dollars, you're looking at about 700 US. Or 650 US actually, probably. So it's a 1 to 6 point something ratio. It's pretty bad. The exchange rate's really bad. So US dollars is really cheap. That's the moral of the story. So that's what's going on here. And I think we should do last finishing touches. What is missing now? We've got the drives in. I think we just need a graphics card and probably 2 SATA cables, and we're done. Alright guys, so building process is finished, and as you can see, it's just sitting here on the loading screen of F1 2018. I've done all of the benchmarks now, and I must say, just commentary on how the system performs, I can tell the difference. I've got to be honest, compared to setting up, say, an i5 2500 or even like an i7 3770, there's a noticeable difference in just the responsiveness of this system. And it's not to do with SSDs or anything like that, because I'm using the same SSDs I would use in any of the i-series, you know, in older generation CPUs. It's just the responsiveness of the platform. I don't know whether it's the DDR4 or having, you know, 6 cores, 12 threads, but generally overall this system's pretty snappy, and it's, I mean, obviously it's a modern system, but you know, there's a noticeable difference in just the day-to-day use. It just feels faster. But feeling is one thing. Let's put some numbers to it. So I'll start rolling off some benchmark numbers. Alright, so first benchmark off the mark of the 13 games we're going to be testing is Fallout 76. Now I include Fallout 76 because it's an online game. Not a lot of people play it anymore. Not that they did to start with, it wasn't a popular game. But it's a good game because it stresses older parts. It's not a very well optimized game, so it'll show you just sort of, it gives you an idea of what an older CPU can and can't do. So with the frame rate, you'll notice that the average is 59. That is not because of the hardware, that's purely because of the frame rate cap in Fallout 76, or any Fallout game for that matter. It's hard locked to 60 frames per second, which is not great, but apparently it's all down to the physics engine. If it goes faster than 60 frames per second, then you seem to move around faster in the world, so that's solid programming there, Bethesda. Well done, guys. 10 out of 10 IGN. But yeah, anyway, so that's the averages, and the 1% and 0.1% lows droop down a little bit, but that's just the nature of this game. It's pretty stuttery, and I've got to be honest, it ran pretty well on the Ryzen system. Next we have CSGO, and CSGO we see 168 frames per second average, 92, 1% low, and 64.1% low. And I've got to say that's not mind-blowing. But we are using an RX 480, and the Ryzen 5 1600 was not particularly known to perform well in this benchmark. But again, it's, 168 frames per second. You're not going to be upset with that result. Next game was PUBG, and this was averaging 88 frames per second, 58 on the 1% lows, 1% lows, and 38 on the 0.1% lows. And the general feeling of this game when I was playing, it didn't feel laggy, it didn't feel stuttery, it just felt like it was running properly. Next is Fortnite, and 106 average, 78 1%, and 42.1. Again, I'm playing a game, it looks fine, it runs fine, there's no real issues that I can report, it's just working as expected. Next up is Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and this is where we start to get into these newer titles that I have. I've made a point of getting some more up-to-date, I know Odyssey's a little bit out of date now, but just sort of, games that are from the last 18 months, or games that are notoriously, if the CPU can run that game, then I can run any game. That's sort of what I try and include in the benchmarks. That's why Odyssey's in here, because it's a tough game to run. And as you can see, 50 on the average, so we're not even averaging 60 here. 39 on the 1% and 0.1% of 35. Must say, it did run smooth, even though it wasn't a high frame rate, but I generally had no qualms with the game. It ran quite well in the system. Next is Far Cry New Dawn. It ran 71% average, 53% 1% lows, 53 1% lows, and 50 on the 0.1% lows. Again, buttery smooth, running fine, no complaints, happy with it. Next was Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and yeah, it's a tough game to run. And it's also a bit of a pain in the neck to benchmark, because there's no built-in benchmark, and it's sort of very open world. It's not like GTA's open world, but GTA has missions that you can do, and they're sort of effectively on rails, so you can sort of follow a pattern. Not so much with Breakpoint. I had to play it for a little bit, which wasn't disappointing. It was actually quite a good game, considering I'm not really one to play games a whole lot. And yeah, we're seeing 49 on the average, 38 on the 1%, and 34 on the 0.1%. Not great, but it didn't look stuttery, it didn't feel sort of bad, it just seemed to work. And that was sort of what I liked about it. So it runs okay, and it's a strenuous game. Next up is the Old Faithful, which just won't seem to die in benchmarking charts. It's a game that people still play. So it's GTA 5, average of 70, 1% of 57, and 0.1% of 53. I thoroughly expected this hardware to be able to run this game, given that it's about 5 to 6 years old on PC now. I don't know I think it was 2015 it was released. So it's a while ago. But it runs fine, it's not stuttery, it's not messy, it's fine. And I think from memory, Ryzen is also notorious for not being able to run this game very well, so it does. Next on the list is Apex Legends. We're seeing averages of 90, 1% of 39, 0.1% of 30, and yeah, it didn't feel stuttery, it felt okay, and the 1% and the 0.1% probably when I'm jumping out of the plane or something, it seems to be little moments where some areas are tough and some areas are not, and I think it's just the nature of an MMO game, but it runs it reasonably well. So next benchmark is Battlefield 5, and we're seeing a buttery smooth experience, 57 on the average, 1% of 47, 0.1% of 40. So it feels sort of nice to play, it doesn't feel choppy and messy. Definitely not a high frame rate experience, but it runs it quite well. I wasn't too disappointed with it, and it's good to see that the hardware can still do it. Next up is another new game on the list, Dirt Rally 2.0. Buttery smooth, and this is a game that I can say from experience I'm one that has a rather fetish for rallying. If you didn't know, I do filming of rally stuff in the winter months here in Australia, and subsequently I've played a lot of rally games in my time, and any stutteriness in a rally game, you notice that it's sort of, you need that consistency. It's like VR, you just need the consistent frame rates, and that is why you're seeing an average of 75, a 1% low of 61, and a 0.1% low of 58, so it runs it quite well. Next up is the Outer Worlds, a new game which is included in the Xbox Game Pass. That's what I was going to mention. And it runs it really well, 63, 54 and 46 respectively. And it just feels nice to play on this system, you know. It doesn't stutter, and there's been really nothing that the system hasn't been able to do, and I've been really pleased with it. Last game on the list is F1 2018. Now, I've not benchmarked this game before or anything else. I used to benchmark 2017. 2018 included in the Xbox Game Pass, and we're seeing 112 frames per second on average, 86 1% lows and 0.1% of 77. When you're on a 60Hz refresh rate monitor, you can't tell the difference. it's performing awesomely. So I was, again, buttery smooth experience, no issues. Yeah, it's just an awesome title. Now, that's all the game benchmarks. These will be the standard going forward into 2020. This video will be released either tonight just before 2020 or you know, tomorrow in the new year. Either way. So yeah, this is going to be the 13 games that you're going to see throughout the year. Keep an eye out for them. Keep an eye out for how the different hardware performs. And yeah, it's just something I want to do going forward, is try and have some form of standardization. That's it for the benchmarks. That's it for the build. Thank you very much for watching. I know that I'd generally like to include at least another system to compare it to, but the point of this system, as I said at the start of the video, is this is the new benchmark platform for TechFurb. This is the reference point, not specifically with that GPU, but in general this CPU is going to be the reference point to compare all other CPUs to. If need be, the 1080 will be chucked in the system for benchmarking. You know, and that's why I've set the system up in such a way that I can just pull graphics cards in and out. It's actually quite easy to remove them and add them as needed. So that's the idea of it. And would I recommend a Ryzen 5 1600 to people? If you can get them on the cheap, yeah, they're not a bad chip. To be honest, you're probably not going to find one new anymore. If you're finding one new, you're looking at either a 2600 or a 3600. 3600 I like, but it's a bit expensive. It's 300 and something Australian dollars. And if I was building now, and I was building just a straight gaming rig, 3600 absolutely would be the CPU I'd go with. But for most people, honestly, unless you're going past like a 5700 XT or a RTX 2060, anything above those cards, go with your high-end, you know, like a high-end Ryzen 7 or a high-end Core i7 or whatever, one of those. Pick your poison. But you know, if you're gaming on like a mid-range or lower card, like literally a Ryzen 5 2600 or, you know, any old i5 will honestly do the trick. So it's more than appropriate for those use cases. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and like, subscribe, comment, all the usual stuff. Check out the Discord server if you want to get in touch with me. I'm finding YouTube comments are getting to the point now where the channel's getting too many of them for me to be able to respond to them and manage them, so I'm not seeing everything anymore. Whereas in the past I used to try and respond to every YouTube comment, and the channel has thankfully gotten to the size where it's just the way that YouTube manages comments is not great, so it makes it very difficult for me as a creator to sort of see what everyone's saying. So if you want to get in touch with me directly, the best way to do it is through the Discord server, because that is a very good way of managing comments and questions and things like that. So you got a question for me, jump on there, ask the question. I usually respond within 24 hours, give or take, depending on what I'm doing. You know, obviously I have a life and I have a job and other things, but I do try and get to it and respond to it within 24 hours. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next video.